Did you like it though? Did you?
Double time.
All right. What's good, people? This is that Fantasy Network back with another episode, and we got a special guest on, Mr. Barry Barnes. And Barry, tell everyone where they can find you at.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me on. Really appreciate it. You can find me anywhere on any of my social handles. On Instagram, you can follow me at Lock Report 100 or also Locker Talk 100. You can also check me out on Twitter at Locker_report. Also, you can see me also my publication at locker-report.com. So it's where you can find me at.
So I ran across you. Before the draft, like I do a lot of work in the off season, and before the draft, I was just looking up different content creators like myself, and I ran across your channel, and you was talking. You was real passionate about players, and the ones not getting a lot of attention because of course they didn't get the draft capital. So I was like, I got to get my man on to talk about the undrafted free agent. But when you told me you don't even do fantasy, I was like, wow, you put in all this work and you don't have a little fun on the side?
Oh man, it's crazy because during the time when the fantasy draft is going on, that's when I'm really in the process of evaluating talent for the following year and also following up on the players who I evaluated that's currently on rosters. So that's why it's really hard for me to really get into it because when the fantasy draft happened, I'm really at live time and I really don't have the time to really get into it. Not that I don't like it because, I definitely want to have the opportunity to get into it, but that's the only reason why I'm not in the fantasy part yet.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I would say getting at least a free ESPN league or Yahoo league to experience it. That way, hey, if you don't have the time for it, if it falls to the wayside, it is what it is. Now, if you was to get in the league with me, you fall to the wayside, I'm gonna be talking trash to you. Because if I'm whooping your behind, I don't care if it's your first time or not. You will take the
Yeah, so hey, look, you gotta be like that because normally I would say when I'm not in that mode, I'm the same exact way. Even when I play basketball, I'm a trash talker.
You said you be working on the players for next year. So during September, you looking at college players that's coming in, that's gonna be coming in the league?
Yes, well, what I look for is all small schools, and when I was associated with the NFL front office, and that's how I got hooked up with them with Lock Report. Is that around that time? That's why I do what I call a pre-look. Start looking at some players from small schools only. Start to look at some players that I started to pretty much put their name out there of guys to look at during their final year in the college football. And then at the end of the school year, I'll follow up with those same guys, see how they finished out their collegiate career. And sometimes you have some players who I start out with a pre-look that's not on my radar. And then I may have some players that's now on my radar. So I kind of do an early look first, and then I'll go full stream with the guys who want to promote going to the upcoming draft.
Well, hold up, Barry. Hold up. Well, we need to bring it back. You say you used to be in an NFL office. Well, maybe you need to tell me how you got to where you are. Hold up. First, what are you currently doing? As far as just your regular job.
Well, what I do now, as far as my Lock Report, that's my publication. And in 2014, I stumbled across the NFL Regional Combine. And they were workouts just like how they have in Indy, but it was just for small schools. And they had these workouts around the country at that time. And so in 2014, I stumbled across it, started looking, recognized that nobody was covering this platform. And that's when I got to the point where I was just covering the workouts. And then in 2015, that's where I pretty much had made an agreement with NFL football operations through the use of Lock Report to evaluate talented players by going to these workouts. And they made some changes to the platform where at first anybody could try to work out until they had changed everything in 2015 to only draft eligible players. And so I went from just reporting on it to the point where being around the NFL scouts and evaluators, I started to get the eye of a scout as an evaluator. And so I pretty much started to change my publication around to more of an evaluation process of small school players. And with those players who we evaluated and guys who I would talk about and promote, Then it went into the process where all 32 teams will look at these names of these players, and that was a part of their evaluation to bring more players into, into camp to look at to see if they could find players to be drafted. And so did all that stuff until the end when they stopped doing the regional combine, and up till last year when they stopped it altogether. So now instead of giving my information to the front office, working from there, now it's just my publication is solely predicated to undrafted players, some small school guys. Sometimes I may have an opportunity to cover someone from a Division 5, I mean not for different, from a Power 5 school based off an agent may contact me to say, hey, look at my player. So that's what I'm doing now with Block Report. And if you go to my YouTube channel with Locker Talk Podcast, everything is predicated to undrafted players from small schools. And now this year I decided to try to get into the XFL and the USFL to look at that part as another way to evaluate to see what players may come from that process to get into NFL training camp. So now that's what I'm pretty much solely tied to in my process and evaluating talent.
Okay, that sounds awesome, man.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into some players.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
What you got for me, man? And no
Well,
matter if they came from a small school or not, what all you got for me?
Well, I looked at the guys who I evaluated first, and falls on the offense side of the ball. One of my favorite players through this whole process is Taylor Grimes, came from Iconic Word, wide receiver. And this young man is phenomenal. There's nothing that he can't do as a wide receiver. Solid route runner. He catch the ball with his hands. And one of the things as an evaluator with wide receivers, you want to see who's going to make hand catches. He rarely lets the ball touch his body. He signed with the Denver Broncos. I really believe that he's going to make that roster. And also they have a running back named Jamel McLeod coming from Youngstown State.
Hey, he's on my. Hey, that was my number one.
That dude, he is legit. He was my top back, and he's another kid that not only excel in the backfield, but he can catch from the backfield. He's actually pretty good in his route running. Pretty much can do the whole route tree from the backfield. I really like him. I think he's definitely going to be one of those players that's definitely watch out for. That's going to make that roster. And also another thing I love what he like to do that he blocks. He's not afraid for that. He's not afraid of contact. So he's almost, I don't want to say complete, but he's like right there on the verge. And when he get that NFL experience, I think he's going to be something special. I don't like to compare players to players currently in the NFL because they haven't done it on the NFL level. But he's definitely someone to watch out for. The Jets, they have a wide receiver named TJ Luther, coming from Garner Webb, 5'11", really crisp, one of those slot receivers that can catch the deep ball. Really, really solid with what he's able to do, make his breaks, get the separation that he needs. I think the Jets have something under the radar with that young man. Now, during the process, small school talent, trying to find quarterbacks is very, very difficult. But what I saw in Foreman's quarterback, Tim McDermott, with the Washington Commanders, another solid quarterback. He led the FCS in passing yards and touchdowns. Really know how to spread the ball around the field. Really have all his mechanics down. Can make all the NFL passes. He's the only one from the small school guys that I've been looking at that's still in camp right now. But the Washington Commanders would not be surprised if he had challenged for the backup position. That young man is really, really talented. And also they have a wide receiver from Hawaii. His name is Zion Bowles. He's really good as well. Really good wide receiver, catches the ball with his hands. But one of the things that makes him really good is that he really explodes in traffic. He makes sure he brings the ball in, and then at the same time in tight situations, he's able to move and weave. Not the best at, I would say, as far as the deep ball in terms of knowing how to use the sideline as a pretty much use the sideline as another way for him to be able to protect his body and also protect his ball. Not that strong there yet, but he definitely have all the stuff that he needs for us to be able to at least make this roster. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a running back named Alfred Graham from Morgan State. This young man from HBCU platform pretty much have all the tools. Another young man that can block, decent route runner from the backfield, but he's a pure running back. I have to watch. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers backfield is somebody to definitely watch out for. We look out for him. Another running back, the Cincinnati Bengals. They have this guy named Jacob Saylor, who's from East Tennessee State. Another exciting running back, really low to the ground, very powerful, very strong, decent hands for his size. Pretty good player that can catch the ball deep down the field. That's another player to watch out for the Bengals. And then the Patriots, they always find somebody. They have a wide receiver from Rhode Island. His name is Ed Lee. In 5'10", could be one of those type of Julian Edelman type of receivers that who Bill Belichick likes. Really looking out for him. But the Patriots, they do have one guy from last year named Riley Webb from Coastal Carolina. I think he's. I hope they unleash him this year. But there are some of those offensive guys to watch out for from small schools. They definitely to watch out for. If you find them somewhere on a fancy roster, especially that Taylor Grimes kid, and also with the running back we just been talking about, Jamel, definitely sign one of those guys.
When I tell you, most of these guys I never even heard of, man.
That's the point. That's why I do that.
Like,
Yes.
most of these guys. So, I did hear, what was it Tim McDormand? I don't even think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't think about undrafted quarterbacks because they never really end up doing much. I don't really ever see them.
Right.
But the top ones I had this year was Malik Cunningham, and he ended up going to the Patriots. But I think they're supposed to be converting him to a wide receiver.
Yes.
There are plenty of wide receivers over there.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And
then the next one I had was Austin Anune. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anune. He played for North Texas.
Right.
So those was the two that stood out to me. Oh, Tyson Bagent, that was at Shepherd.
Right. Shepherd is one of those passing schools. Right? Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys there that he wasn't necessarily on my radar, but I'm really familiar with him. The only thing
was at the Senior Bowl. He was at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
The only issue I had with him consistently as a quarterback, a lot of times his balls would sail. And
I watched that. I watched that in person.
Yeah, and you gotta and with his ball not dropping down, I think that's the part that really hurt his chances getting in the NFL. And if you watch the quarterbacks when they have to get that ball over the middle, a lot of times they just see the defenders coming and they just try to get the ball out. And when they get the ball out, they're not really precise enough to have the ball to come high and then have that drop. I think that's the part that hurt his chances of actually signing or being in someone's camp in the NFL.
And then for the running backs, I think the number one undrafted free agent for me was Sean Tucker because because his medical. That was the number one. The next two running backs I had was Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina, and then your boy you mentioned, Jaleel McLaughlin. Is that how to pronounce it? Yeah. So I did have him on my list, so I was hyped when I actually you mentioned him. But when I say I didn't hear about none of the receivers, you threw me for a loop. So you say Taylor Grimes, TJ Luca,
TJ Luther,
Luther, okay.
And then Ed Lee from Rhode Island, he was the Patriots.
And you got one more, Tyon Bynes or something.
Oh yeah, Zion Bynes. I mean, he with the Commanders. He's from out of Hawaii.
So the ones that I had, the top ones I had that wasn't drafted was Bryce Ford McWheaton, and he went crazy at the combine. He just the most athletic receiver there. It was Jaden Hasselwood, high profile player that didn't do much in college, but some ones that people don't know about. I thought this dude really stood out to me in the analytics, and his Tria Sharp Sharon. He played for UAB. His first name is Trea.
Okay, from Alabama, Birmingham.
Yeah, so he really stood out analytical wise for me on some things. And then I'm surprised you didn't mention Xavier Gibson. I thought that would have been one of your guys.
I can't claim him because he wasn't one of my guys.
I just knew you was gonna mention him. I was like, oh yeah, this guy high on my list, and he's small school. And when you didn't mention, I was like, wow, okay.
Yes, he was. When I go through my process, every once in a while, I find someone that slipped through the cracks, from the cracks. Yeah, he's definitely one on that slipped through the cracks.
So
Uh-huh.
there was another guy that I liked. I'm trying to find him.
There were several other guys. There was like two guys that, far as well, one particular guy that of quarterback wise, that I was hoping. Well, I'm not surprised that I can see that if he make the league, if he make it change the position. That's Jason Shelley from Missouri State. I really like him a lot. He's 6 foot, too small to play quarterback position, but he's a pure athlete. I wouldn't be surprised if he resurfaced somewhere, but being, playing in another different position. So there was a couple other guys out there that I was surprised that they didn't sign, but there were several other players that actually signed with other leagues.
So the last guy that stood out to me in some things, and it was Jared Wayne, played for
Okay.
Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I know when it comes to wide receiver, just like quarterback, it's a hard time
Yes.
to make it up that depth chart. Good luck.
Yes.
Running backs, you might see a running back because they get injured so often. You
Right.
might see an undrafted running back, but wide receiver, you're gonna have to be damn good and consistent.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And from evaluating wide receivers and to see what is looked at from scouts. And one of the things that hurt a lot of small school receivers is the way how they make their breaks, how they are able to break out in their routes. A lot of them they take a long time. Now it may seem cruddy, it may sound crazy, but that extra second and a half in making their break or making their turn is detrimental to their career. And it's like their footwork definitely have to be precise because in the NFL, you probably have heard many times that it's a game of inches. I like to say it's like millimeters. It's a blurred sport. And from being on the sideline of an NFL game, it's to be able to see that in live. I mean, in live time. I mean, it's mind blowing. And to see what NFL scouts are looking for. I mean, they're looking for the littlest things, and especially when you come from a small school, there is no room for any errors because when scouts come to look at small school players compared to big time school players, they already know that the big time school players, they have everything in there. They're looking to see who they're going to bring in to help their depth chart. When they go to small school players, they're looking to see who they're going to eliminate instead of trying to get through the process. They say, okay, who does not belong here? And so I'm watching them, check the players off. They're trying to find who they're going to eliminate. And then you have to give them a reason not to eliminate you out of that process. So it kind of works a little backwards from your Power 5 talents compared to your small school talents, where big time schools, they're looking to see how they're going to improve, how they're going to bring them on a depth chart. Small school players is more like, okay, who we're going to eliminate. And then if you stand out on that list and your name is not checked off, you could be one of those special players. And Adam Thielen, he's one of those guys that came through the process of the regional combine in 2014 when he signed with the Vikings. He came through the process in 13, then came through the process again in 14, and to see what he had made and how he was able to get to where he is now. I remember the last time I actually talked to him face to face was at the Hall of Fame game when they played the Chicago Bears. I believe it was in 17, and that was the year that year was the first time he actually got a chance to play in a game against the Green Bay Packers, where they actually it was a Thursday night game when they exploded. And when I had talked to him on a Hall of Fame game, all he kept saying was that he was working on his route running all off season, working on his routes, getting in and out of his breaks, getting in and out of his cuts. And when I talked to him about far as wide receivers, what's the main thing they look at? And he said that was it. Getting in and out your breaks, out of the cuts, because if you can do that, you can create separation. So he was one of those guys who I evaluated, came through the process. And when you look at players like him, I can name tons of players, but he's one of those ones that definitely stands out and now he's pretty much a all-pro wide receiver now with the Carolina Panthers. Looking forward to seeing what he's going to do for the rest of his career.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he one of the best undrafted there was.
Yep, hands down, hands down.
So, were there any tight ends that stood out at all?
Well, as far as tight ends really, it was, believe it or not, there were some tight ends that I saw, but I didn't have no film on them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing to look at the stats, and you have some players that probably would jump off on the paper, but it's like I gotta have video, especially if I can't see them in person. And this year, trying to see a lot of the players in person was a little bit of a challenge. So as far as tight ends standing out, and also with old linemen, it was really difficult this year because a lot of the ones that who I wanted to try to talk, to look into, didn't have no film. And since I didn't have no film to like really look at them, I really couldn't put my name attached to who to watch out for. I mean, I was hoping to find out Robert Tunyon. Robert Tunyon is one of the guys that came to the process I evaluated, and to see what he's doing in the league. Finally being healthy last year, really didn't get the ball in, really didn't get the ball in much from the Packers, but now he's with the Bears. Looking forward to seeing how he's going to be used this year for that squad. So, as far as tight ends and old linemen, didn't really have a lot of film to really expound to talk about certain players.
Now, for me, my top tight ends, there was Jaleel Billingsley. I think he came from Texas, but I think he was formerly with Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. Now he's light. He need to gain a lot of weight.
Yeah.
6'4", 220, 220 as a tight end, 220.
Right. Yeah.
But
they definitely got to put on some more pounds, because you're pretty much just a glorified offensive lineman, and they need you to be a little bigger to chip block or whatever you need coming off the edge.
I had a Kamari Everett with Bethan Cookman. I figured that would have been one of your players, and guess who? He went to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patriots love them undrafted people.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Another small school one that stood out to me was, and it was analytics more so, with Lachlan Pitts with Mary and William and Mary. But he stood out analytically wise. So those were some one that stood out. But I know I rarely ever see undrafted tight ends make it to the starting lineup. So I know it's a tough hill to climb for them. It's a tough hill to climb for any tight ends. Like, that's a position you got to cultivate.
Yeah.
So
you got to. And Robert Tunyon, he's one of the very few that actually worked his way into being a starting tight end in the NFL. I mean, the Lions had brought him in at 16. As soon as they let him go, the Packers snatched him up, and he made his way in the starting lineup. At least 2 years ago with the Packers. So he's somebody to definitely look out for. I think the Bears going to really use him well while he's there. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna hold you, my guy. I know you got things to do. So you just tell the people again where they can find you to make sure. And what's your Twitter handle also?
Sure, my Twitter handle is Locker_report. On Instagram, Locker Report 100, and also Locker Talk 100, all small caps. You guys can follow me also with my publication at locker-report.com. So make sure you go and check it out. It's definitely different content that you will not see anywhere else. But if you love football, you'll definitely love that spot there to get familiar with unfamiliar. I always like to say, get familiar with the stars of tomorrow today.
Yeah, when I went to your website, I was like, "Oh, he's serious. He big time." I was like, "Oh yeah, he big time." I can't wait till I get to that level.
Oh man, don't worry, you're doing it well. You're gonna be there, man. I love the content you have on there, and look forward to coming on your show. Again, probably talk about the defensive players, but I know that when August kicks in, that's when I'm gonna really start amping everything up. To put together a whole bunch of information, and also follow me during the course of the year, because I do a weekly highlight video of undrafted players and what they did in the NFL for that week. So I'm all undrafted, small school guys. That's an element of the NFL, the element in football that no one talks about. And being an underdog like myself, I'm drawn to it.
That's awesome. Well, Appreciate your time, man. Thanks for coming
Yeah.
on.
Yes,
And
sir. Thank you for having me.
and we out.